Stepping up. Thank you for being here for our community.
For the second time in just over a week, the Northwest is preparing to say goodbye to an officer killed in the line of duty. And we thank you for being with us this morning. I'm Joyce Taylor.
I'm Greg Copeland. A procession for Everett Police Officer Dan Rocha is set to begin shortly in Everett. Community members are lining the streets along that procession route. The procession will start at Southeast Everett Mall Way. It's going to travel southwest to Evergreen Way and then take a sharp right and then northbound on Rucker Avenue until it reaches downtown Everett, and then eventually head east to Angel of the Winds Arena, where Officer Rocha's memorial begins at 1 o'clock. And we, of course, will be carrying that live for you. We do have crews spread out all along the route today.
King 5's Eric Wilkinson is near Angel of the Winds Arena. Kara Afallen is near Madison and Evergreen Way. And we begin with Angeli Kakaday. She's at the start of the procession at Everett Mall Way. Angeli, what are you seeing there?
Well, it's a windy and rainy morning throughout the morning here at this point, but that hasn't stopped people from coming out and sort of lining this procession route here at the start of it. And you can see sort of in front of me here, we have a flag with the blue stripe. We see a sign saying, "We Heart Everett Police Department." There's about a dozen people here at this point, despite the wind and the rain that we had this morning. It's actually peaking out a little bit. We're starting to see a little bit of blue sky, but this is a busy street. Lots of businesses both to the left and to the right of me where people have been parking and coming out. I'm actually joined by one of those people right now. Gina, you live in this community. You live in Everett. Why are you here this morning?
I'm here to support Officer Rocha and his family and the community, and hoping that there'll be some changes really soon with all the violence in the area, in the city, and just showing my support.
There's people here lining the street despite the wind. Does that surprise you?
No, not at all. It's great to see all the people around here giving support. So yeah, the weather shouldn't turn you away.
Absolutely. And so this is what's going to happen. You can see the mall on that side. That's where the procession is starting. It's being staged, and then it's going to come up this way and take a left onto Everett Way Mall, which is where we are currently. So we're going to send it back to you for now.
Angeli, I don't know if the woman you were talking to is still there, but she said she wanted to see some changes. What is she talking about specifically? Can you ask her?
Gina.
Sorry, did I go too soon?
Explain to us, what changes are you talking about here in Everett?
Just more vigilance, and I work at a retail store in the area, and it's just gotten really bad. And I think just everybody looking out for everybody else. And yeah, that's all I can think of.
I see tears in your eyes. This is emotional for you.
Yeah.
Describe what you're feeling right now.
Just the lives lost and the family what they're going through right now, and all his, coworkers, and just the community going through. Losing somebody that's trying to protect the community. He went to work that day and just never came home.
Thank you. That's sort of the message, the coming together here, and that's what's happening here at the start of this procession. More and more people we're seeing coming out for this fallen officer here in Everett this morning.
Angeli, thank you. Well, today we are fortunate enough to have Captain Ryan Portman with the Puyallup Police Department here to help us explain what is going to transpire over the next few hours.
We really appreciate your time today. I know it's a difficult day for you and for all of the officers involved. And when you hear what this woman said, you go home, you go home every night, you go to work the next day, and the expectation is that you're going to come home again. And Officer Rocha didn't. There's a lot that goes into planning this day for his family, isn't there?
Yes, thank you, Greg and Joyce, for having me here today to explain the process that we go through in law enforcement when we plan a memorial. There were probably 30 to 40 people working behind the scenes over the course of the last week to make sure that we honor the family's wishes and that we stay true to the ceremonial honors that also come along with this type of celebration of life.
I mean, I guess when I look at this, and within 2 weeks, when we were here just that Friday doing the other one for Dom Collada, I know that Brian was here with Behind the Badge Foundation, and he got that text, and we knew something was up. And to have that happen the same day that we're honoring another life, knowing that we're going to have to do this all over again, but you mentioned it's not the same, and you have to treat each family individually. How do you go about that?
So let me just speak quickly about the Behind the Badge Foundation. It's a foundation that is here to support the survivors, the spouse, the children, the grandparents, and the department as well. And so what the Behind the Badge Foundation does is it integrates with Everett PD and, of course, the family. And each family has a different idea of what that celebration of life is going to look like. And so again, we do our best to honor what their desires and their wishes are, and that's what makes each ceremony unique.
You've been with Behind the Badge for some time. How difficult was it for you, and shocking that you would be doing this a week and a half later?
It's terribly tragic, right? Yeah. I was at Dom Collada's service. I was part of the planning process for that. And in the middle of that, we get the text that it's time to spool the team up again and begin another process. And normally, we have some time between these to reconcile our thoughts and be prepared for when this might happen again. It's really tragic when it happens so close together.
Process it. Our condolences to everyone in your department and all law enforcement. It has to be such a really difficult time for all of you. So we really are grateful that you're here today.
And we will be leaning on you for sure.
Eric Wilkinson is one of our journalists along the route. Let's go to him live. Eric.
Yeah, we're outside Angel of the Winds Arena here, and we have Everett's Public Information Officer, Kirby Duncan, here with us. Kirby, my condolences to you, the entire Everett Police Department. How are you doing today?
You know, we're surviving. It's been a difficult day for us. We've done a lot of work to plan for today, but it doesn't make it any easier.
Can you tell us a little bit about what's going to happen inside here today in terms of speakers and such?
Yeah, so it's Officer Dan Rocha's memorial today, and it's just an opportunity for the law enforcement community and his family to grieve a little. There'll be speakers from the city, including the chief of police and the mayor, and then several loved ones of Dan will come speak as well. And then we'll have some honor guard ceremonies, bagpipes, and a lot of other law enforcement, deep law enforcement traditions as well.
You worked with Officer Rocha. You know him as well as anybody on the force, really.
Yeah, Officer Rocha worked in North Everett, and for a couple years we had an overlapping time where I was working the downtown unit. So we worked hand in hand for a couple years there, and he was a friend.
Tell me just about this sort of man and officer that he was.
Yeah, Dan was a surprisingly happy guy. You know, we came to work early in the morning, 5, 6 a.m. every day, and he would come in and he'd be happy to be there, which I could never be that happy at 5 a.m.
Tell me about just his character. I know he had an impact on you when you came to work. It made you feel better about coming to work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Dan was just, he was the guy you wanted to come to your call. He knew what he was doing. He took care of business, and he was sure of himself, and it made you more sure to be there with him.
What are your thoughts for his family today?
I honestly, I don't have words to describe what they must be going through. It's something we know is a possibility every day when we put on the uniform and the badge and we go to work, and it's our worst nightmare, and I don't have words for what his family must be going through.
Does it give you pause? I mean, we've had a couple officers killed in the line of duty over the past couple of weeks. When you do put that badge on in the morning, when you do put the uniform on, does it make you think twice?
It's something that you think about, of course, and I was definitely thinking about it more lately, something my family's been thinking about, but it doesn't change what I do. I'm here to serve the community. It's a job I love, and it's a sacrifice that we are willing to make, and it's tough when one of our brothers or sisters makes it, but it's something that we're willing to do.
Thank you. Officer Kirby Duncan with the Everett Police Department. We are waiting for the procession to begin from the Everett Mall, coming down here to downtown Everett, and we will bring that to you as it happens here outside Angel of the Winds Arena. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Eric, thanks so much. And that procession is now just getting underway. It is starting, as you said, at the Everett Mall. You can see the motorcycle officers starting. Cars will come in a specific order, and there's a reason for that. Will you explain that to us, Ryan?
Sure. What we'll see first is what's called the 5-minute bike. That's a bike that's out in front that's running the route to make sure that there are no obstacles in the roadway. Then we'll see Dan and his family. Dan will be in a coach, and his family will follow in a few vehicles. And then in terms of the law enforcement profession, what we'll see is the Everett Police Chief leading the procession, followed by some command staff members, Officer Rocha's squad, the greater Everett PD body, and then Everett Fire, and then finally other first responders from the area and from out of the area too.
And I know when we did this a couple weeks ago, there are a lot of motorcycle officers out and about, and as I understand, they're to make sure that all the roads stay closed along the road. They go out ahead of everybody, right?
Yes. So there are approximately 105 motorcycle officers participating in today's ceremony, and they are, as you see, staging at various points. They ride ahead, block an intersection, and do this leapfrog thing. So when you see the person passing on the right, they're leapfrogging the other motorcycle.
And this is Officer Rocha and his family now making their way to Angel of the Winds Arena. And it's quite a large procession. How many vehicles are part of this today?
I believe there's over 275 vehicles in this today, and I'm sure that we'll see that they're from all over the state. Maybe Canada and certainly Oregon and Idaho have had a contingent in the past, and I would expect that they might be here as well.
It's important for them to show up on a day like this, isn't it?
Yes. They're showing their support for not only the family, but for the law enforcement community and Everett PD in particular. They're there grieving with them.
This route is about 7.5 miles. They go down Everett Mall Way about 1.5 miles before taking that right onto Evergreen Way, which will lead basically to Rucker all the way north into downtown Everett. And King 5's Kira O'Fallon is along that midpoint there as they make that turn. We're going to go to her live now with what she's seeing. Kira.
Yeah, as you mentioned, we're at about the middle of the route right now. If you take a look across the street, we're seeing all of these employees from Toyota who are just standing out to show their support. It looks like they placed blue balloons on each of the cars that are out facing the street. They've got the flashers on for some of these cars. You've got a sheriff's department car over there as well. As people come out to show support, we knew it was going to be a dreary type weather day and rainy, but these people still are standing out here to show their support. And luckily the sun is now starting to come out really as we start to see the procession head this way. So far we've just seen one motorcycle officer and a patrol car, but we know that the route should be heading this way soon. We've got some people out standing on the sidewalk also beside us, which is going to be hard to show you. Hopefully we'll show you in a little bit. One guy told us that he took a bus all the way from Eastern Washington to come out here. We don't know where he is. He has since left and found somewhere else to stand and watch, but it's just really awesome to see all these people out here. They are just waiting to show their support as the procession comes by, and they're just out here just loving life and being really grateful that there are police officers out in the community who are, giving their everything to serve and protect. So we're going to be out here for a little while longer as we watch more and more people kind of come out of their cars. Some people are just sitting inside their cars right now. We'll come back to you in a little bit, and hopefully we'll see more of the procession soon. For now, I'm live here in Everett. Kira O'Fallon, King 5 News.
Kira, thank you. A little bit farther up the route than I thought she was, so it'll be a few minutes before they get there. We wanted to take a minute and basically let you know the man being honored today. We wanted to tell you a little bit about Officer Dan Rocha. He was born in 1980 in Santa Barbara, California, grew up in Las Vegas, really into sports, played a lot of soccer, some football, some hockey, really athletic. Graduated from Durango High School in 1998, attended UNLV, worked for MGM Grand Hotels, which is where he met the love of his life, Kelly.
He and Kelly, they got married in 2005, and they welcomed their first boy, Thomas, in 2010. They had a second boy, Harrison, in 2012. They wanted to move to a community where they could raise their family, so they moved to Everett in 2011. They settled in North Everett in part because of Dan's love of nature and the water, they decided to move to Stanwood in 2017.
Rocha was hired as parking enforcement for Everett. That was in 2017. He was hired as an Everett police officer in 2018. In 2020, he got his dream assignment as day shift patrol officer for the North Precinct there in Everett.
And everyone who's talked about him, who's been a law enforcement officer or worked with him or knew him in Everett, said he loved what he did, that he always wanted to serve, that he loved being an officer, specifically in Everett, where he'd once lived. In North Everett, what really was his dream job. What are some of the things that you're hearing about the kind of officer that he was?
I'm hearing that he's a protector, and he's been a protector all the way back to his childhood, right, with the hockey team. And in speaking with people with Everett PD, that's what they described. He was service-oriented, and he was there to protect and serve.
His path to being a police officer doesn't seem very traditional. When I looked at, he's only a police officer for a few years, and he's in his 40s. Is that typical? Or is it usually somebody comes out much earlier and knows that that's the line of work they want to get into?
It's becoming more typical, I think, for people to work in a career before becoming an officer. We've had people that were teachers before that have become police officers. Dan, of course, was working in retail before he became a police officer. So I think some people are they try to find their way, and as they get older, they realize that they're service-oriented and they want to get into a profession where they can serve their community.
You get that call.
Yeah.
And he was working with the department, but not an officer. I think he was working parking patrol. And then they liked him so much, they encouraged him to become an officer and sort of go through the program and promoted him.
Yeah, I think that's a good testament to who Dan was, right? He's a hard worker who the department knew would do a good job, and so they essentially did promote him to be a police officer, yes.
When people are watching the past couple of weeks, obviously this is just tragic, and I don't know how much you can speak to this, but as a captain with Puyallup Police Department, you've seen a lot of this with the crime and the pushback and the changes of policies. It's tough to be a police officer right now. A lot of people just don't want to do it. How do you get people want to do it in times like these?
It's difficult. It's a very challenging time to recruit, and even more of a challenging time to retain police officers. They look at kind of what's going on in society, and they're asking themselves, is this worth it? Is it worth it to come out and to protect and serve every day? And I don't have an answer as to how we are able to recruit, because if we look across the state, agencies are down significant numbers of police officers. I feel the tide is changing a little bit, and that we're coming back around, and that the police officers feel supported, but the last few years have been very difficult.
There has been, since 2020, quite an uptick in calls from first responders and their families because of anxiety, stress, depression. We were hearing, it's Code 4 is the agency, correct? That is offers support to families. They were telling us last week that they're seeing this huge uptick because a lot of officers feel like they have a target on their back. Are you seeing that in your department in Puyallup?
Yeah, I think that most agencies across the state have a peer support program, and that's peer officers who are trained to recognize fellow officers that are in crisis or experiencing difficult times. And I think certainly in my agency, but also Pierce County, if we were to look across the board, our peer support officers are being engaged much more often than they have been in the past.
On a day like today, though, when you see people coming out to honor an officer from all across the community, from all walks of life, races, from just such a broad swath of people, doesn't it give you hope that you do have support, that officers are being supported by the community?
Absolutely. It fills my heart. It fills my heart to see the community come out in droves to support law enforcement. We hear a lot about the silent majority. I think the silent majority is out there today standing with Dan and his family, Everett PD, and the greater law enforcement community.
I mean, I'm glad the weather cleared. I hate to think that would be a factor, but during Deputy Collada's procession, the weather was nice. It was a Friday. People pulled kids out of school. This is a Monday. It's been stormy. You don't know what's going to happen. But this, I think, really shows just kind of.
Yeah, people are showing up.
Right.
I mean, I think
whether or not they just don't care.
They're going to come out and represent Everett, right, and the officers. show their support for the officers, not just in Everett, but beyond.
Well,
And that's what we're seeing, so many people along the route.
Yeah, even for you. I mean, this has got to be nice to be able to see people coming out to pay their respects to not just him, but police as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. It fills my bucket, and I know it fills my fellow folks in law enforcement their bucket as well.
Takes a special person to serve in law enforcement, and we have so many officers across the state and the country. So why did you get into law enforcement? Why does somebody get into this? It's beyond more than wanting to serve, right?
It is. It's beyond that. My calling, I think, I actually began my career looking to be a firefighter, and then nothing against my fellow firefighters, but there's a little more action in law enforcement, and I was driven to the uniqueness that every day brings. You don't know what you're going to encounter. You don't know what type of call you're going to respond to, and I found that to be challenging and rewarding, and so that's really why I began pursuing a career in law enforcement.
And when you see all your fellow officers, men and women in blue, this procession, what does it represent on a day like this when we're really honoring an officer, to see so many of your people out there?
So it tells me a few things. It says that we're here to support Everett PD, and we're here to support Dan's family. And there's something about law enforcement. Dan's family will never be alone. When those kids go to high school, there'll be somebody there to coach their team.
Yeah, it's hard for you. Even though you've been with this organization for a long time, it's hard every time, isn't it?
Yep. As you said, every time is different.
Because it's a different family.
Yep.
Different children, different people left behind. We want to get back to Angeli Kakade, who is along the procession route. Angeli?
Yeah, I'm actually joined by Judy. Judy, when you were, the procession first started, and we first started seeing that first batch of police cars, I heard a yelp from you. It's very emotional for you. Describe what you're feeling right now.
These officers and our fallen officer, these people are out there every day for us. I love them so much. I live here in Everett. They're here anytime we call, right away. I just feel so sorry and so grateful for these people that protect us every day, and the family of the fallen officer. Oh, it breaks my heart. I'd do anything I could for them. Of course, I was here today. Thank you.
And we see people lining half a block in front of me, a half a block behind us. How does it feel to know that your community is coming out and supporting?
Thank you. I'm so proud of everyone. Oh, they have to be here. Every day we have to be here to help them. We're there for them too, like they are for us.
And your hand is just over your heart. It has been the whole time you've been watching this procession. Why is that?
I can't do anything else, but I love these people. I just am so grateful. Yes, that's all I could do. What else can I do but be here for them?
And Judy, how do you think a community is impacted when they have a fallen officer like we do, Officer Rocha here?
Oh, all my neighbors, all of us. All we could do is just cry. We're just in shock. It's so awful that there's so many good people out there, a lot of good people. So we all will fight against the people that hurt our police officers. We'll be there for them like they are for us.
Judy, thank you so much. That's sort of the message here up and down this procession, a lot of flags that we're seeing. I'll send it back to you for now.
Kiara, Angeli, thank you so much. We're going to get to Kiara in just a moment. Listen, we heard that woman just heartbroken. She really, speaking for so many people across the region, and expressed it so eloquently. There is a way that you can help the family. It's really easy to do because the Everett Police Department has set up a fund. It's a memorial fund. It's for Officer Rocha's family. All the branches of Coastal Community Bank are accepting donations. And so, again, that's all branches of the Coastal Community Bank, and I'm certain that the City of Everett, the Police Department, has a link on its website as well. We're going to find that link for you and have that information as we continue, but you can certainly help by supporting Officer Rocha's family by donating if you choose to.
And Ryan, maybe you can fill in some of the gaps there. I know the police department has a specific fund that it generally sets up. What does that cover? And if people are wondering, well, isn't that already covered with insurance or whatnot? What does a secondary fund cover?
So public funds cannot be utilized to conduct a ceremony like this. So we rely on other funding sources to do so. And so that's what some of this goes to. Some of these funds will go to, and then the rest will go to the family.
Okay.
She brought up the family and the two boys. They're about 10 and 12 years old. And people may not understand when you say that they will never be by themselves. Every major event in their lives, birthdays, graduations, police from their department, from their dad's unit, they're going to show up. They are always going to be there for them, aren't they?
Yep.
Tell us more about that and why that is so much a part of what officers do.
Because it could be any one of us, right?
Yeah.
And we want to know that that support is there. And so that's why we're there. And when those kids look behind them at a baseball game, at a high school dance, when they're learning to drive, it'll be an officer there that's helping them.
And how does that work? Is that somebody who the family has chosen, or is that just a different officer, or how does that work?
So it depends. Sometimes it's Dan may have very good friends in the department, right?
Okay.
And those friends would step forward. Other times it may be officers asking, is there something I can help out with? Is there something that the boys may need? Do they want to go camping, or do they want to go fishing, or just to fill that void? And I know Dan has a large extended family, a very loving family that has wrapped the boys and Kelly around their arms. But just moving forward, she should know that we'll be there.
We've seen it over and over again, whether it's on a young girl's wedding day and officers show up, or just significant moments. It's a really wonderful thing that once you're an officer, you're in that family forever,
Yep.
and you have this huge extended family, forever. It is really beautiful.
It is. The Blue family goes, across the country, right?
Talk a little bit about this, about the procession as we move into downtown Everett here in a few. It's going to take multiple turns, and if we're watching this, I don't know exactly what we're going to see from our vantage point, but you'll have several different branches peeling off to different locations, depending on what they are. Maybe you can walk us through that. So when that comes up, we know what to look for.
Sure. What we'll probably see is some cars peeling off that are not going to go to the service. It's not uncommon that folks come to the procession but can't go to the service because they have to go back out and protect their communities. So many local agencies may just come and participate in the procession and then veer off. Then we'll see Everett PD veer off, and they have their own parking spot, and then the greater law enforcement community. As we approach the venue, then we'll see the garrison flag, the crossed ladders, the pipes and drums, and the things that we associate with a law enforcement ceremony. So the closer we get to that, we'll see those ceremonies or traditions.
We want to get back out to Kara Alfalin. He's going to walk us through the entire procession. But Kara, you are along the route where a lot of people have gathered to pay their respects today. Are you talking to folks there?
Yeah, we're seeing more and more people coming out to stand here on the side of the street. We're about mid-route right now, so we're still seeing the procession happening. One of those people out here today watching is Hillary. Hillary, thank you so much for speaking with us. Tell us more about why you're out here today.
I'm out here. I've lived in Everett my whole life. This is really my community. I've always grown up surrounded by cops. Different members of my family are part of the law enforcement community, and so it's just something that over the past week, it's been something that our family is just going through. So my family, we're just out here to really show support to the Rocha family and to the other law enforcement communities, that there are people out here that are going to be there.
How important is it for you to stand out here today, and what do you feel, when you see all of these police cars coming by, you see all these people out here holding signs, holding their phones up? What is it like to be able to see this community come together like this?
It's a lot of different emotions. It's really sad that it had to come to this, and that this is the reality of the world we live in right now. But it restores a lot of hope that things can change and that there will be a change, and not everyone out there is bad.
Do you have any message for the family of Officer Dan Rocha, who's just really going through all of this right now? Do you have a message for them?
Just that I'm sorry that it had to come to this, and that there are people out there that are wanting to support them.
Thank you so much for talking with us this morning. We're going to continue to watch the procession go by here. For now, I will send it back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Kira. I mean, that is really the sentiment that we're hearing from people along the route, that they feel so badly that this has happened. And they talk a lot about this time we're living in, which has been so stressful for law enforcement, but that they wanted to come and show their respects, like that young woman who has lots of members in her family who are in law enforcement, but she wanted to be out there today.
Yeah. You know, there's a saying that we grieve alone, but we mourn together. And today is a day of mourning, right? We're here together to mourn Dan's passing. And we're also here to celebrate his life. And as we work our way into this celebration of life, we're going to hear a lot about Dan and who he was and the type of guy that he was to his family and his community. And so while it is a day of mourning, it also is a day to recognize and celebrate who he was as a person.
And that's sometimes a tough balance to strike, is that with that tone. I mean, obviously you want to pay your respects, but it's also remembering those great moments, those fun moments all throughout his life that I know the family wants people to see about him.
Yeah.
I think about the family being part of this procession and how much it must mean to Kelly and the boys to see all of these people, especially law enforcement officers, come out. You couldn't possibly speak for them on a day like this, but what does it mean for them to be today, to see this?
That his sacrifice wasn't in vain, right? That it's recognized, and that people are taking time, as we've said, out of their day to come out and to show their respects for him. And so I really feel that this has got to show them that his work mattered.
There's something about that, isn't there? That you would stop what you're doing, that you would take a moment, that you would pause and reflect and honor this man today.
Yeah.
And that how important it is for them to know that his sacrifice was not in vain.
Yeah.
Let's head up to Hewitt really quickly, because I'm starting to hear the bagpipes and you see the garrison flag. Walk us through here a little bit, and then maybe we can just listen. I don't know the vantage point. Maybe you can walk us through that.
This is right near Angel of the Winds, so go ahead.
Okay, so what you're seeing there is the garrison flag, and I believe there's at least a ladder truck there that's holding the flag, possibly two. The ladder trucks, when they're crossed like that, that's supposed to form an arch. And garrison flags are flown on special days, special occasions, gala events, or celebrations. And so today we're celebrating Dan, and so hence the reason for the garrison flag.
We're going to listen in just a moment, but tell us why bagpipes and why they're significant.
So bagpipes come to us from Ireland, right? When we had a mass migration to America, and the Irish folks took up dangerous and low-paying jobs, which in the mid-1800s were firefighters and police officers, and it's been part of our culture ever since.
It's beautiful. Let's listen for a bit. probably are listening to the pipe band, and there is a horse that follows the pipe band.
Yes, behind the pipe band will be the rifle team, which is the Washington State Patrol rifle team, and then there'll be a riderless horse, and within the stirrups of that horse will be boots that are faced backwards. And the riderless horse goes back to the Napoleonic era. It's supposed to represent a warrior that didn't make it through the battle and is going home. The reverse boots are meant to symbolize a leader or an officer who's looking back at his family and his comrades for the last time.
That gets me every time. I mean, that to me represents loss.
Yeah.
The hat that's on the saddle, would that be his hat, or is it just a hat to represent?
It's a hat to represent.
Okay.
And then we have the riderless horse is followed by two other horses, and that's meant to symbolize a caisson. And a caisson was a two-wheeled wagon that would bring arms out into the field and then bring bodies back. And so what we're symbolizing here is that the horses are pulling the coach. The horses are pulling the caisson back home.
And that would be Officer Rocha,
Yes.
followed by his family. It must be just a surreal day for them. I can't imagine. He was just 41 years old, 2 kids. They were such a close-knit family. I just don't even know
Yeah.
what they would be going through.
So sad. The officers that are touching the family vehicle here, that's again meant to represent or symbolize that they won't be alone. The remainder of the day, those officers will be with them, and as we've talked about, will be with them forever.
For some of our viewers who may not know, from the moment that Officer Rocha passed, he has never been alone. Not one moment.
That's correct. When an officer passes, we conduct what's called a casket watch. And so from the time of his passing until through today, until the end of the ceremony, there will be officers with him the entire time. And we'll see that as we get into his celebration of life when we enter the church.
And how is it decided? Do officers volunteer to do that? I mean, it takes dozens and dozens of officers over the course of a week to rotate through to make sure that their fellow officer is not alone.
Yes, usually what happens is the agency that's been impacted by the loss, their folks volunteer to do this, and then if they can't fill the void, then agencies that surround that will sign up and work that as well. But most of the time, especially given a department the size of Everett, I'm pretty certain that they probably filled it with Everett PD folks.
They've had more than 200 officers in that department. So
Yeah.
I'm sure they all stepped up.
Let's get back to Eric Wilkinson as we just watched the motorcade make its way to the arena. We're going to take back and get to Eric. And Eric, what did you see?
Yeah, it's, an eerie silence. So quiet just to hear that pipe band come through, and everyone showing just the utmost respect. One of those people is Jim Fay. Jim is a Marine Corps veteran.
Yes, sir.
Jim, what were your thoughts as that motorcade came through?
I beg your pardon?
What are your thoughts as that motorcade comes through?
It was very touching. It was really, really something. And then naturally the bagpipes, they're always very touching to listen to and means a lot to all of us. And it's an honor to be here for Dan and the police force all over the United States, not just Washington and not just Snohomish County or King County, but the whole United States. They need all the support they can get, and we need more of them.
Yeah, you brought your flag here. Well, what does this flag represent to you?
A lot, being military naturally, and then I was military police while I was in the Marine Corps, so it means a lot to me and my family. So,
what are your thoughts for Officer Rocha's family today?
For what?
Your thoughts for Officer Rocha's family today?
Just thinking about everyone. I don't know. It's a little hard for me to talk right now. Sorry about that. But thanks for letting me say something, and the support that everyone's given to this gentleman, this policeman.
Yeah, it's an emotional day for everybody. Thank you, sir.
very much.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, I go back to how quiet it is here. There are people lining the streets on both sides, and you could hear a pin drop. It's a really touching, moving scene out here today, just outside Angel of the Winds Arena, where the memorial service will start at 1 o'clock.
Eric, what has it been like for you to be there along the route and to watch this less than 2 weeks since we were talking about the loss of another officer?
Yeah, it's, we've done this way too many times, for sure, and far too many times in the past couple of weeks. It's heartbreaking. And, as a journalist, you try to stay removed, but it's hard to do that because, these are the folks who are out there to protect us. And, as reporters, we bump into these folks, here and there along the way. I never met Officer Rocha, but clearly from everything that's been said about him, he was an absolutely stunning human being. The thing that I really liked most about his story is that he was a hockey player growing up, right? And appropriately enough, he was a defenseman. And that just says it all right there. So, he was protecting his players, he was protecting his friends, he was protecting his community. And I love that, when he first moved from Nevada to Washington, he lived in North Everett. And then they eventually relocated to Stanwood, but he wanted to come back and work in North Everett, and that's what he did, so he could just further protect that community. It's hard to find the words to describe just the soul of such a great man.
Yeah, he wanted to be an officer, and you're right, he wanted to go back to the neighborhood where he had once lived and work with the people that he had once been part of that community. That was his dream job, in fact, to be an officer in North Everett, and it's exactly what he got to do.
Protect and serve, and that's what he did.
Yeah, I think you found the words, Eric.
Eric, thank you.
Ryan, I wanted to ask you, because there are some things here that we're not going to see, and I wanted to explain to people it's very purposeful. Us working with you working with the family, there are things that we show and things we don't show and things we talk about and things we don't talk about, specifics, and part of that's because at the family's request. Now that we've gotten to the arena, we've got an hour or so, hour and 15 minutes until the memorial begins. What's going on between now and then, to a degree?
So what we won't be seeing is the honor guard's going to form a cordon of honor, and that's going to line the route from the coach to the church, and the pallbearers are unloading Dan right now and bringing him in for his celebration of life. As we talked about, there'll be 2 officers that are positioned there on casket watch until the service begins, and when it begins, those 2 officers will leave, and he's considered under our watch. Then everyone in attendance is then watching him, so he's not alone. What typically happens in this hour interim is the family will go into a room that's provided there at the venue, and they'll get together and they'll prepare themselves to go through the service, which it can be very emotional. And so it's just an opportunity for them to process what they saw in the procession and gather their thoughts for the ceremony that's going to kick off at 1 o'clock.
And people may wonder, we try, just out of respect for the family that is grieving, to not show the children,
Right.
to not show his wife and his parents, his dad and his stepdad, who really was like a second father to him since he was 4. He has a large family who's there, so that's why you probably will not see close-ups of the family. For those of you who may not know what actually happened to Officer Rocha, I just want to tell you briefly how he lost his life. It was on the 25th of March. He was shot and killed in an altercation outside of the Everett Community College campus. After noticing some odd behavior at a Starbucks parking lot, he went to check it out. There was some kind of altercation, and it's our understanding that he saw a man moving guns allegedly from one vehicle to another, and he ended up being shot. That suspect has been charged with first-degree murder and unlawful possession of a firearm. And this again, it came as such a shock to the community, but he was out doing what he loved and serving his community on a regular day that he had left his house to go to work and tragically did not come home because of gun violence. So that is what happened on the 25th of March, and he was just 41 years old, had not been with the department a very long time, but had been part of the Everett community for more than a decade. So our condolences to his family, but that person is the suspect, has been charged in that case.
And he, as I understand it, dispatch had told him that this was a bad guy with warrants out for his arrest, already had felonies, had no business being around guns, and I'm not going to mention his name, obviously, but this was a bad guy, and he knew it. And so it's not like he could just walk away from it either.
Right, I guess I go back to the word protector, right? He was there to protect his community, and he was being proactive, and he wanted to make sure his community would be safe.
We're going to tell you a little bit more about him, and then if we can, I'm going to ask my producer. Code 4 Northwest is a crisis hotline that's open 24/7. In 2020, they saw about 500 calls a month. Since 2020, in the last month, just in the last month or two, the uptick has been up to 2,500. That's the volume now. The average 500 minutes a month. Now it's 2,500 minutes a month. That's how much anxiety and depression that they're seeing among law enforcement and their families. So I mean, it's a real issue that Code 4 Northwest is dealing with. So we might get to that package that Kelly Greenberg did last week and replay that for you. Dan Rocha was born in 1980 in Santa Barbara, California.
Yeah, he obviously, we talked about it. We heard from Eric. He grew up in Las Vegas, played a lot of sports, football, hockey, played as that defenseman. He graduated from Durango High School in '98 and went to UNLV. And that's where he started his first career. He worked for MGM Grand Hotels, and that is where he met his wife, Kelly.
And he and Kelly got married in 2005. They had their first boy, Thomas, in 2010, their second boy, Harrison, in 2012. A very close-knit family. They moved to Everett in 2011, settled there. Dan loved nature, though, and he loved the water, so they moved to Stanwood in 2017.
He was hired as a parking enforcement officer in Everett 2017. He was then hired as an actual police officer in 2018, and then in 2020 he got what was his dream assignment, which was the day shift patrol officer for North Everett.
So Officer Rocha is the second law enforcement officer killed in the line of duty in Western Washington in just the past 2.5 weeks or so. As you can imagine, it is taking just a huge toll on those who do protect and serve.
And King 5's Kelly Greenberg reports it's evident in the number of calls to that local crisis line we were talking about.
In the hardest of times, Nick Bauer is there to listen.
The key word I keep seeing and hearing is enough. Enough is enough. When are we going to stop being the pariahs of society?
He operates Code 4 Northwest, a crisis line for first responders, a line that's grown increasingly busy in the past year.
The frequency of calls has gone through the roof. The severity of calls has gone through the roof. An interesting, statistic or reality is spouses and children of first responders have surfaced with some fairly major issues.
In 2020, the crisis line averaged 500 minutes a month. Bauer now says call volume breaches 2,500 minutes a month. He says there's more anxiety and depression between law enforcement and their families, and recent events, including the death of 2 officers, is taking a toll.
Are you guys expecting a spike just in the month of March, April alone?
Yeah, we've already seen it. And we're seeing people reach out department-wide, dispatch units, other departments, because situations like this, not 1, not 2 officers shot, but 2 dead in a very short, in 2 weeks. It has implications for all law enforcement because we all feel like targets now.
Bauer, who has 30 years of his own experience in law enforcement, was offering support at Pierce County Deputy Dom Collada's funeral on Friday when he heard the news Everett police officer Dan Rocha had been shot and killed.
It was a palpable change. You could literally feel this heaviness in the air.
We know it's a risk that we face, every one of us faces when we put on this uniform and we put on the badge. But you can never be prepared for it.
For Everett Police, it had been more than 2 decades since an officer had been killed in the line of duty.
My biggest fear through all these situations is that officers start to lose hope.
Which is why he said Code 4 Northwest is there 24/7 to listen, while communities continue to mourn.
My hope is that society understands that we need to nurture these people. Really, they're warriors. They need to be nurtured, whether they'll admit it overtly or not.
Callie Greenberg, King 5 News.
That code for Northwest Crisis Hotline is 24/7. That number is 425-243-5092. That's 425-243-5092. You can find Callie's story online at king5.com, and the information is also there for you.
Well, we've got about an hour and 7-8 minutes until the memorial gets underway. We're going to get to King 5 News at noon here in a few minutes, but before we get to that, tell us what to expect today, just a little bit.
So we're going to hear from Dan's chief, the mayor of Everett, and then his family. And his family, I expect, is going to get up and talk about the personal side of Dan that we have been talking about today, but in more detail. And then following those speakers, we'll transition into what people associate with a law enforcement funeral. So we'll hear taps, and we'll hear the buglers, and the flag presentation. You know, the full service is what we'll see as we wind our way through the afternoon.
The mayor is going to be speaking, as well as his brother-in-law.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
And one of his dads. Again, we talked about how close they are. He has two dads, essentially. So,
Mike Henry,
yeah,
who he has been his dad since he was 4 years old, is going to be speaking.
Yeah.
And we talked about this, and I don't want to get too much into it, as much as you're comfortable, but the support system for kids, it's really interesting because his kids are old enough to really understand what's going on. How do you help them through this time to cope with that loss?
So, you know, kids know whose moms and dads are cops, right?
Yeah.
And there's always a fair number of them in school. Their dad's a cop, their mom's a cop, and those kids, they check in on each other. They circle back and they make sure that not only are they okay, but that their mom or dad are okay, and they're always kind of looking out, I guess, for us in a strange way, right? We're supposed to be their protectors, but I think sometimes they circle back and talk amongst themselves and check in and make sure their moms and dads are doing okay.
You know that because your daughter has done this with her friends after tragic police shootings or a line of duty deaths. She's talked with her friends.
Yeah, I know that. Unfortunately, being from Pierce County, we've had a fair share of these over the years, and so that's really how I learned about the networking that the kids do. And I think it's quite special that they're looking out for each other and that they're concerned about their mom and their dad.
I was going to say, at a time when everybody's talking about kids' mental health, that has to bring a little bit of relief to know that they are leaning on one another for that. And they've got their own network of how to kind of deal with this.
It does, yeah. It warms my heart to know that they have that support system.
If folks are out and about and they see an officer just doing their job like they do every day, maybe should they stop and say, hey, thanks for your service? What would that mean to you?
It means a lot, you know, when we're out and about and folks stop and they just take a moment out of their day to recognize the job that we have in trying to keep their community safe. And just a simple thank you, we appreciate you, it goes a long ways towards filling that officer's bucket, I guess.
A lot of people are going to be attending this service for Dan Rocha today. They're starting to line up and file into the Angel of the Winds Arena. How many people are expected to honor him there today?
I'm not sure the exact count. I don't know exactly what the Angel of the Winds seats, but I would expect...
About 10,000, I think, max.
I would expect several thousand folks to be there.
Isn't that just a beautiful sight to see all of those people coming?
Yes.
To honor him and his sacrifice.
So we have officers, I've just been told, from Dallas, from Boise. It's fairly common for New York to send officers, so I wouldn't be surprised if we have a couple of NYPD folks there as well. And some of the other big cities, Chicago, sometimes typically will send someone as well.
It's an extensive brotherhood.
Yes.
And sisterhood.
And sisterhood.
Why do they come from as far away as New York or Dallas?
Again, I think to show that Dan's life mattered, right? His life is, and his sacrifice is recognized. And so I believe they come to show that support. And as I talked about earlier, the brother and sisterhood, you know, goes across the country. If Dan's kids end up on the East Coast and they're going to college and they need something, there'll be somebody there for them.
You are going to be back with us at the top of the hour after the noon show at 1. There is a bit of a break now between now and 1 o'clock when the service actually starts, and we will be back to cover that for you as well. Ryan Portman, we really, really appreciate your time today and all of the work that you do every day with the Puyallup Police Department and with the Behind the Badge Foundation. You guys are really under the radar, but you do so much work on behalf of officers across the state, and we're grateful for your time today, because you could be anywhere, but we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
We'll get much more from you here in another hour. For now, let's take a short break. We'll come back and get King 5 News at noon with Steve Bunin.
We'll see you at 1.